All right. Apparently now we're live, and you guys missed my joke. You guys saw me moving my lips, and you'll have to see if you can read lips and get the joke that you didn't hear. Anyway, okay. Well, welcome to the Tuesday night Torah study. Overwhelming applause. You know what we need? We need one of those signs that goes up, applaud, like they have in the studios. I've been to one of those studios where they were filming live a game show and it said applaud, it said this, the signs come up. Because the audience is not smart enough to know when to do these things. So they tell you when to applaud, when to clap or whatever. Anyway, so welcome to the Tuesday night Torah study. We will be journeying through, as we continue, we're going to be continuing our journey through the books of the first 5 books, the books of what we call the Chumash, or the books of Moses. We're going from Genesis to Deuteronomy. We're in the book of Exodus, the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus, as we continue down this journey. So the way this works for you on live stream is that Manny is going to take care of the live stream desk there. Okay, and so please respect his leadership in the live stream. He'll take down any comments, questions, or things as we go through the interactive portions of this. All right, because we do have some parts that will be interactive. Okay, that being said, the way this is going to kind of flow through is that we're going to do a little bit of prayer time in case there's any things that we need to cover that are urgent, and praise time as well in case somebody has a big praise, some things that we've been praying about perhaps. And then we're going to read this week's Torah portion, and then we'll go ahead and somewhere in there we'll squeeze in some announcements, probably at the beginning and again in the middle, just to remind people of what's coming up real quickly, and then we will discuss the Torah portion. That being said, it would be helpful for you to have your phones turned off if you're here locally so that we don't get interactive ringings and noise and things like that. Also, it would be helpful if you want to make a comment or ask a question, if you had something to note down your comment or question as we journey through. And so you want to make sure you have something available for you to do that. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and begin with prayer time. And then after we get all of the prayer requests and praise reports, we'll open up the study officially by praying for those as well as praying for the study itself. And so who wants to get us started? Okay, bring it back to Manny. Wait, Rabbi Tom had his hand up. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'd just like to remember our brethren in some of the outlying areas, South Africa, Australia, the Philippines, New Zealand, and parts of Europe. And sometimes we tend to forget them. And so it's good if we remember them and remember that they're part of the Mishpachah.
Amen. We certainly can do that.
I'll say one.
Okay, Steve.
A prayer for, as Passover becomes closer, for everybody that will be journeying to the MTOI Passover. That'll be nice to have prayer for them.
Okay, amen. Okay, as he's bringing the mic back to Manny, we are in the process of selling the old ministry house. Okay, so let's pray that the right person will be led to find that house. We know Abba already has a person in mind, so we're just praying that they do that quickly and that we get the price that is necessary, or that's ideal to not only unloading the property, but also giving us some funds that we could put towards the future things that we're doing here. So, okay, and that's we actually had it officially open on as far as being a listing as of Monday, so it's been now listed. We've got some showings scheduled. And so let's just pray that works out relatively quickly, because right now it's just having a mortgage paid and nobody in it. So it'd be great if we could sell that quickly and get a decent price. All right, Manny, go ahead.
So was this for prayers and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
I totally heard you wrong. I thought you were asking for somebody to open in prayer.
Oh, to open in prayer. So you raised your hand. That's okay. Nobody else here had their hand up. Does anybody online have something they want to pray about?
Okay, so I've only got a few. As you know, we're on a delay.
That's okay.
So as I read them, hopefully they'll come in.
That's fine.
Okay, so.
Or it'll just go quicker.
Yeah. Rich and Lena Payne, pray for my father-in-law, was just diagnosed with stomach cancer. Praying for Yah's will, and I'm praying for healing, praying for shalom for all of us. Can't stop crying. Olivier and Janet Hoffman, please kindly pray for wisdom, discernment for our family, and an unspoken from Janet. Anonymous mom, praise our son is at home. No surgery was necessary, even though his appendix was obliterated. He's doing well. Praise Yahweh. Thank you for your prayers. Let's see. Brown, prayer for my son in China and those impacted by the virus. Prayers for our families coming into the knowledge of Torah. Shirley, prayer for a friend who needs encouragement, praying for wisdom and discernment for friends. Rachel Atkins, praise report, thankful for our 34th week OB appointment. Everything is going well. Praise Yah.
Amen.
Nolan and Jennifer Bibb, prayers for Jennifer. Jennifer's mom, she went to the doctor today and she was told she had an enlarged heart.
I have one of those too. That wasn't a joke. I mean,
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's why that was discovered and as part of my need for the CPAP and the BiPAP. It can be a byproduct of sleep apnea.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Thought that was a double meaning, like.
Nope.
Yeah,
I meant
you
it
do have
literally.
a
I
big
meant
heart,
it literally.
Rabbi.
I meant it. That's why I clarified. I meant it literally like what you were talking about. Okay. I was actually sympathizing and empathizing with the person having the same problem. To some degree. I mean, it's not causing me a problem, maybe causing them a problem. It depends on how much it's enlarged and whatever else. But, you know.
Okay.
And if you haven't checked into it, then check into the sleep apnea problem, because that could be causing the problem or exacerbating it or some other thing. Okay, so I would look into that. Yeah. Something I was not aware of until I had the sleep studies and then tell me these things. So, okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Prayers for Selena. She has to drive across the state tomorrow and has been sick today, so she's not thrilled about that. Stephanie Henderson, prayers for better decision making and Abba's will in her life. Kathleen Phillips, prayer request for discernment and strength in her walk. Christy Washington, continued prayers for her ribs. MTOI Philippines, Jet, praise report, blessings just keep on coming. Praise Abba, we love you, MTOI Mishpocha. Thank you, Rabbi Tom, for the prayers. Evangeline, praise Yah for a relief from cough and colds. She's got a way to go yet, and some unspoken. Stephanie Henderson, also please pray for my new job, that is to help generate a little extra income. Michelle Perez, prayer for Yah's will to be done in all areas of our lives and for us all to have a no-quit heart and mind in this walk. Amen.
Amen.
Somebody on here said, oh, Robert Wyatt, Rabbi does have the biggest heart.
Thank you, Robert.
King's daughter, praise report. I got not only one job offer, and I will be able to honor the Shabbat, but 4 more interviews this week. Praise Yah. Kay Carrick, praise Abba for the little lights he has given me as I walk through this time of darkness. This thing keeps moving really quick here. Amy and Brad Jones update, prayers and praise for Brad's surgery, immediate relief, but have days of recuperation. Prayers for MTOI leadership. Helen, prayers for healing for my tests. Tests I did yesterday, and pray for my son that he could listen and do more when I ask him to do things because of his opposition defiant disorder. Charlie and Deanne, prayers for new business and learning ropes. Caleb Reinhardt, please pray that we are able to find a place to live soon in Cleveland as I start my job in Chattanooga in 2 weeks.
Hey, amen.
Amen. And I'm caught up to everything that I have at the moment.
Okay, no problem. This part of it doesn't have to necessarily go very long, and you can hold the mic if you want to do the opening prayer. We'll do that in a minute. Okay, so let's add on to the list any of the prayer requests that have come in since the last time we gathered. Also, I want us to pray for the response and the reactions that are likely to be going on in this country as we get through this political season. All right? I mean, I'm not going to talk politics, but just knowing that, we have the State of the Union tonight, and I should do the State of the Body as always, but we do have the State of the Union, and tomorrow we'll have a vote on the president's acquittal, most likely. And, there's always people on both sides of these things, but what we're praying about is the emotional response. Let's pray that everybody make sure that all their feelings are in the bags, the tripwires are not left out where people can trip on them, and that the response doesn't get too crazy. And then on top of it, of course, the Iowa caucuses are still not settled. As crazy as that is. My son, who's now just getting barely into all this politics stuff at 16, was all excited to watch the first results of the first election that he was actually paying any attention to, only to find out that he went to bed, woke up, and they still didn't know. So he's like, I was like, this is unusual. This is not the way it normally works, I told him, but So, but these are things that people get very emotionally charged about, right? You're used to the religious part. 3 areas that people get very emotional about, politics, religion, and health. Okay? And so this is the politics part that's happening. So just keep people in prayer. When I say prayer, I said don't pray for one side or the other. I don't care which side you care about. It's all going to fail eventually anyway. Otherwise, we wouldn't be reading what the scripture tells us. The need will be for Yeshua to come. If we were going to fix it, he wouldn't need to come. So ultimately, it doesn't get fixed no matter who's doing what. But let's pray that people handle it as best they can on whatever side they're on, that there can be, relative shalom while this is all playing out. Okay? I mean, it all does fall apart eventually, but it doesn't say just because everybody gets their feelings hurt. It just, decisions are made and things are happening in the political scene. In the meantime, let's hopefully maintain, at least within our ranks, the ranks of the covenanted, okay, that we can maintain shalom. And do not get literally sucked in. Do not get drawn into that just cesspool. Okay? Okay? I'm not saying that politics or health or religion is a cesspool, but getting drawn into the debates over it, that is. Okay? So don't get drawn into that. Because it's a place that there is no winning. If you've done it, you know. There's no winning, okay? So just be careful with all that because, we have a very big week this week, relative to the country and things. And then, of course, as the political thing really starts to ramp up heading towards the vote in November, people are going to, whatever they're going to do, I don't know. But, they're just, it's going to get that way. It's just, you want to guard yourself from being drawn and caught in the, it's almost like the pictures you remember seeing in the cartoons and movies where there was like a whirlpool forming and people get too close, they get sucked right into it in the ocean or something, right? Don't get too close. You will get sucked right into it. Okay? And if you watch the movies, the people get sucked into these things don't usually fare very well. All right? So don't do it. That's all I'm telling you. It'll be tempting, but don't do it. All right? Also, real quickly on the prayers, speaking of emotional, okay, I will be saying this also during the announcements. So don't be upset. I'm canceling the Money Mastery class for this Sunday, because I'm going to, this is the other part, it's a praise and prayer. I'm going to go visit the Rebbitzin. Okay? I applaud that too. Okay? So I'm going to go visit my wife. I'm going to take the kids down there for a couple of days because she's going to be gone still another month. And she does not deserve that kind of isolation. She's trying to take care of her father and do all the good things, but, and she's really appreciated those of you that she's had contact with that are giving her encouragement, but she's missing us badly. So we're going to leave on Sunday and go down there for a couple of days. We'll be back midweek. Rabbi Tom, if you can do the Torah Study Tuesday, that would be fantastic. All right? And then, like I said, I won't be gone more than a couple of days, but I'll be back in time, for Shabbat, but just so you know. So keep that in prayer. And the praise is that we got it worked out so we can get down there and spend a little bit of time. She won't be coming back until pretty much March 1st or 2nd, like right after that Shabbat. So it's going to be still a good another 4 weeks or so, or close to it. So let's just keep that in prayer. Okay, and I think that covers it on my prayers. Anything else urgent pop up while I was talking away? Nope. All right, so go ahead and why don't you open us in prayer?
Just somebody trolling here and there.
Okay, so all you trolls,
expected.
this isn't a bridge. Go find a bridge. Facebook has lots of them. You don't need to troll us over here on YouTube.
Kurt's got it handled, though. He's doing good.
Good.
He's rocking it as usual.
Okay, good. No bridges here, just go find a bridge. Okay. Go ahead and open us in prayer.
Okay. Abba, Father, we come before you, remembering that you are the creator of everything. Father, we can't thank you enough. We can't walk in gratitude enough to just thank you for everything that we are able to do. Please forgive us for all of the things we take for granted. Abba, help us to push everything aside right now. Help us to just forget about everything and spend this time with you, learning your heart, learning your word. Father, help us to glean what we need to glean to become the people you need us to become, the people that you've called us to become. Father, I thank you for this ministry. I thank you for our teacher. And I ask that you be here with us and be here with him and speak to us, that we may learn something to continue to be molded into who you need us to be, like your son Yeshua. In his authority, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay. All right, so let me just go through some quick announcements and then we'll get started. Just some reminders. Okay, so for those of you on live stream, we do this every week. Okay, so if you're new, this is something we do every week, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And we also have a youth program that's connected to the same thing, the Torah portions weekly. It's called Parsha Pearls. We call it our YMTOI program. MTOI is Messianic Torah Observant Israel. That's our organization. And of course, the Y in front of that makes it Young Messianic Torah Observant Israelites. And so we have ymtoi.org. And on the website, you can download free every week the weekly Torah portion for the youth. It's also good for the adults, but it's designed for children, mostly 5 through 20, 5 through 18, something like that. Okay? And so you'll get in there a discussion of an aspect of the portion, not the whole portion. Just one of the 4 main points of the portion will be discussed. The children will have things like fill in the blanks to see how much they paid attention. There'll be word searches and games and puzzles and mazes and things, coloring pages, a craft, a snack, a song. I mean, everything you can imagine that you could have flashcards with Hebrew words, all related to the Torah portion. So it's a very robust program, fantastic program, and available to you at the very reasonable price of free. Okay, so, all right, so enjoy that. You can use it for Sabbath school. You can use it for homeschooling in terms of the Torah curriculum that you're doing, etc. Okay, a reminder, though, that there aren't going to be any new Torah portions. We already have a few years' worth on there. The new ones will not be coming out again until we get to about another couple of weeks here of Exodus. Okay, so we took a little break, but the ones from previous years will still be available, so you're not going to miss anything. It'll just be the same one from last year. If you're new, it'll be new to you anyway. Okay, and so we have another couple of weeks before we'll be getting the new ones from Exodus. All right, now. We also, for those of you that are on live stream for the first time, we do this also on Shabbat. Every Shabbat, we don't do the Torah portion, but we do have a live stream of our service, and you guys are all welcome to come and attend that. And that's at 1 o'clock Eastern time every Saturday. Okay, let's see. This coming Friday, Erev Shabbat dinner. We're going to start our once a month, yeah. Okay, so it's got a Southern style theme as far as the food. And if you have not yet signed up, please let May know you're coming and how many are coming and what you're bringing and that kind of thing, okay? Okay, so May will be heading that up. If for any of these things we announce, if you're not here generally, but you will be visiting and you plan to visit knowing we're doing one of these things, let us know that you're coming so at least we can get you in the head count. It kind of helps us to know, especially if you're coming with like, a family of 7. That's a lot of people, so we need to know so we're prepared, okay? So please just let us know if you're coming. Let's see. So that'll be this Erev Shabbat. So 6 o'clock, we're going to eat, okay, about 6 o'clock. If you need to prepare anything, hopefully everything should be mostly prepared, but it needs a little bit of prep, then bring it about 5:30 or so. I'd like to start eating by around 6:15, something like that, okay? We can have the food ready to go. We'll start with Kiddush and Motzi and get everything going around 6. All right, let's see. The next leadership meetings for anybody online as part of our leadership will be on Sunday the 16th. Okay, so it's coming up in a week and a half now. And then we also have Rosh Chodesh V'Adar will be on Tuesday, February 25th, and followed by the Torah Study. Okay, we'll be doing our Rosh Chodesh service, and that will live stream. And then on March the 10th, we're going to have Purim and our Torah Study. Okay, and that's going to be at 6 o'clock. We'll be eating and reading the book of Esther, and then at 8 o'clock we'll do our Torah study. I realize I'm drifting away from my microphone, probably not so loud on there, but my voice is probably loud enough. Anyway, then Passover 2020, we've got over 200 people coming. All right, exciting. You can sign up on the website or mail in the forms. The forms are also on the website. You can download them and print them. If you have not received a confirmation from us with the, saying that we have your details right and everything else, please call us, contact us so that we can confirm, especially if you sent something in online. Don't assume just because the online said it was successful. Make sure we got it and check with us and get confirmation. Same thing if you mailed it in, okay? Things fall through the cracks, things get missing, you never know what happens, and this way we can at least have a double check, all right? And I think that covers it for the announcements. Okay, so then a reminder for all of you that are, the people that were here on Sunday. I will announce this again on Saturday, but we will not be having class for the mastery class. So you probably could use the extra time to make your budget sheet and do your ledger anyway. Okay, so giving you the extra week probably would be beneficial for you, and that could work out as a blessing in disguise. All right, so start working on that. Hopefully you are already at least keeping a current ledger since Sunday of all the spending that you've been doing since Sunday. Okay, all right, I think that's going to be it for that. Okay, so this week's Torah portion brought to you by, I'm kidding. Okay, this week's Torah portion is Beshalach. Okay, Beshalach, which means, and he sent, and the scriptures here says, and when he let go, he let them go where he sent them. It's Exodus 13:17 to 17:16, okay? And so we're going to go through that today. I've got 9 readings. So I've got, 6 chairs, 7 chairs. So let's fill them up. Actually, stick 1 extra chair on there, then we'll have 8, and then Rabbi Tom, so it'll work out. Okay, so I've got 9 readings. So for you on live stream, what we're going to do is going to call up somebody one at a time. I'm going to tell them what verses they're going to read. We're going to go through this portion in 9 readings. Again, if you're listening on the live stream or here and you want to take notes, write down something that you may want to make a comment about or ask a question. By the way, for you on live stream, this is not an open invitation to challenging what the teacher teaches or deciding to take advantage of the platform of several hundred computers logged on so that you can promote your own stuff. This is a place for the MTOI Best Shalom Torah Study, of which you may be a guest, and we expect you to be respectful of that. Amen? Amen. Okay. And Kurt and Manny will kind of maintain shalom on the live stream, hopefully. Okay. They do a fantastic job. And let me tell you guys, if you want to see some craziness, you go ahead and watch how hard it can get sometimes. There are moments, now most of the time it's great, okay? But there are those moments where it really can get a little challenging. Okay. So again, I'm going to call up each reader. I'll say a traditional blessing over them. Rabbi Tom, you can come on up. We'll start with you, I suppose. If you want to go first, we can do that. Sure, we'll give you the challenge where you have to go between chapters, across chapter. Do you have your passport to cross over a chapter? Okay, you do, okay. Because your readings will go from chapter 13 into chapter 14. Okay, and then I'll tell everybody what they're reading from and to, and then we'll do that till we finish. Now, when we finish, then we will maybe repeat the announcements real quick for anybody that came in late. That won't take very long, and then we'll go into the discussion part of the study. Okay. Let me get this out of the way. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Rabbi Tom's going to start us off in chapter 13, verse 17 to 14:7.
And it came to be, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Elohim did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, though that was nearer. For Elohim said, lest the people regret when they see fighting and return to Mitzrayim. So Elohim led the people around by the way of the wilderness of the Sea of Reeds, and the children of Israel went up in fives from the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the bones of Joseph with him, for he certainly made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring my bones from here with you. And they departed from Sukkot and camped in Etam at the edge of the wilderness. And Yahweh went before them by day in a column of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a column of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and night. The column of cloud did not cease by day, nor the column of fire by night before the people. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, that they turn and camp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea opposite Baal-Zephon. Camp before it by the sea. For Pharaoh shall say of the children of Israel, They are entangled in the land, the wilderness has closed them in. And I shall strengthen the heart of Pharaoh, and he shall pursue them. But I am to be esteemed through Pharaoh, and over all his army, and the Mitzrites shall know that I am Yahweh. And they did so. And it was reported to the sovereign of Mitzrayim that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, Why have we done this, that we have left Israel go from serving us? So he made his chariot ready and took his people with him, and he took 600 choice chariots, and all the chariots of Mitzrayim with officers over all of them.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Tom. All right, Charles. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Charles, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Charles is going to take us from chapter 14, verse 8 through 20.
And Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, and he pursued the children of Israel, but the children of Israel went out defiantly. And the Mitzrites pursued them, and all the horses and the chariots of Pharaoh, and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them camping by the sea beside Pi-hahiroth, before Baal sits on. I can't even say that. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes and saw the Mitzrites coming after them. And they were greatly afraid. So the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh. And they said to Moshe, Did you take us away to die in the wilderness? Because there are no burial sites in Mitzrayim. Who is this? What is this you have done to us, to bring us up out of Mitzrayim? Is this not the word that was spoke to you in Mitzrayim, saying, Leave us alone and let us serve the Mitzrites? For it would have been better for us to serve the Mitzrites than to die in the wilderness. And Moshe said to the people, Do not be afraid. Stand still and see the deliverance of Yahweh, which he does for you today. For the Mitzrites, whom you see today, you are never to see again. Yahweh does fight for you and keep you silent. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Why do you cry out to me? Speak to the children of Israel and let them go forward. And you lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, and let the children of Israel go on dry ground to the midst of the sea. And I am strengthening the hearts of the Mitzrites, and they shall follow them. And I am to be esteemed through Pharaoh and over all his army and chariots and his horsemen. And the Mitzrites shall know that I am Yahweh when I am esteemed through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the messenger of Elohim who went before the camp of Israel moved and went behind them in the column of a cloud, went before them and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Mitzrites and the camp of Israel. And it was the cloud and the darkness, and it gave light by night. And the one did not come near the other all the night.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Charles. Okay, next up, Steve. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Steve, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Steve, you're going to take us now from verse 21 to the end of the chapter.
And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh caused the sea to go back by the strong east wind all the night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right and on their left. And the Mitzrites pursued and went after them into the midst of the sea, and the horses of Pharaoh and the chariots and his horsemen. And it came to be in the morning watch that Yahweh looked down upon the army of the Mitzrites through the column of fire and cloud, and he brought the army of Miriam into confusion, and he took off their chariot wheels so that they dove in with difficulty. And Miriam said, "Let us flee from the face of Israel, for Yahweh fights for them against the Mitzrites." And then Yahweh said to Moshe, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, and let the waters come back upon the Mitzrites, on their chariots and on their horsemen." And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its usual flow at the break of day, with the Mitzrites fleeing into. Thus Yahweh threw the Mitzrites into the midst of the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them, and not one was left of them. And the children of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall to them on the right and on the left. Thus Yahweh saved Israel that day out of the land of Mitzrite. And Israel saw that Mitzrite's dead on the shore. And Israel saw the great work which Yahweh had done in Mitzrayim, and the people feared Yahweh and believed Yahweh and his servants Moshe.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Steve. Okay, Rick. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rick, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Rick, take us now to chapter 15 and read verses 1 through 14.
Then Moshe and the children of Israel sang this song to Yahweh and spoke, saying, I sing to Yahweh, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. Yah is my strength and song, and he has become my deliverance. He is my El, and I praise him, Elohim of my father, and I exalt him. Yahweh is a man of battle. Yahweh is his name. He has cast Pharaoh's chariots and his army into the sea, and his chosen officers are drowned in the sea of reeds. The depths covered them, and they went down to the bottom like a stone. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has become great in power. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has crushed the enemy. And in the greatness of your excellence, you pulled down those who rose up against you. You sent forth your wrath, it consumed them like stubble. And with the wind of your nostrils, the waters were heaped up. The floods stood like a wall. The depths became stiff in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I pursue, I overtake, I divide the spoil. My being is satisfied on them. I draw out my sword, my hand destroys them. You did blow with your wind. The sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Yahweh, among the mighty ones? Who is like you, great in set apartness, awesome in praises, working wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your loving commitment, you led the people whom you have redeemed. In your strength, you guided them to your set-apart dwelling. Peoples heard, they trembled. Anguish gripped the inhabitants of Philistia.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Rick. Okay, next up, Gabe. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Gabe, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Gabe, you're going to take us now from verse 15 to the end of chapter 15.
All right. Okay. Then the chiefs of Edom were troubled, the mighty men of Moab. Trembling grips them all, the inhabitants of Kian melted. Fear and dread fell on them. By the greatness of your arm, they are as silent as a stone until your people pass over. O Yahweh, until the people whom you have brought pass over, you bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O Yahweh, which you have made your own dwelling, the set-apart place. O Yahweh, which your hands have prepared. Yahweh reigns forever and ever. For the horses of Pharaoh went with his chariots and his horsemen into the sea, and Yahweh brought back the waters of the sea upon them, and the children of Israel went on dry ground in the midst of the sea. And Miriam, the Prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with trembles and with dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing to Yahweh, for he is highly exalted, the horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. And Moses brought Israel from the sea of reeds, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water, and they came to Miriam, and they were unable to drink the waters of Merah, for they were bitter, so the name of it was called Merah. And the people grumbled against Moses, saying, What are we to drink? Then he cried out to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a tree. And when he threw it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a law and a right ruling for them, and there he tried them. And he said, If you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh, your Elohim, and do what is right in his eyes, and shall listen to his commands, and shall guard all his laws, I shall bring on you none of the diseases I brought on the Mitzrayim, for I am Yahweh who heals you. And they came to Elim, where there were 12 fountains of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Marcos. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Marcos, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Marcos, take us into chapter 16 and read verses 1 through 10.
And they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second new moon after their going out of the land of Mitzrayim. And all the congregation of the children of Israel grumbled against Moshe and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, If only we have died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to satisfaction. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to put all this assembly to death with hunger. And Moshe said to And Yahweh said to Moses, See, I am raining bread from the heavens for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portions every day in order to try them, whether they walk in my Torah or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. And Moshe and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, At evening you shall know that Yahweh has brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And in the morning you shall see the esteem of Yahweh, for he hears your grumbling against Yahweh. And what are we that you grumble against us? And Moshe said, In that Yahweh gives you meat to eat in the evening, and in the morning bread to satisfaction. For Yahweh hears your grumblings which you make against him. And what are we? Your grumblings are not against us, but against Yahweh. And Moshe said to Aaron, Say to all the congregation of the children of Israel, Come near before Yahweh, for he has heard your grumblings. And it came to be, as Aaron spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and see, the esteem of Yahweh appeared in the cloud.
All right, thank you, Marcos. Okay, next up is May. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless May, who has come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, May, you're going to take us now in chapter 16 from verse 11 to 24.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, I have heard the grumblings of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, Between the evenings you are to eat meat, and in the morning you are to be satisfied with bread, and you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim. And it came to be that the quails came up in the evening and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay all around the camp. And the layer of dew went up, and see, on the surface of the wilderness was a small round substance, as fine as frost on the ground. And the children of Israel saw and said to each other, What is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moshe said to them, It is the bread which Yahweh has given you to eat. This is the word which Yahweh has commanded. Let every man gather it according to one's need, an omer for each one being, according to the number of beings. Let every man take for those who are in his tent. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more, some less, and they measured it by omers. And he who gathered much did not have too much, and he who gathered little did not have too little. Each one gathered according to his need. And Moshe said, Let no one leave any of it until morning. And they did not listen to Moshe. So some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moshe was wroth with them. And they gathered it every morning, each one according to his need, and when the sun became hot, it melted. And it came to be on the 6th day that they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one, and all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moshe. And he said to them, This is what Yahweh has said. Tomorrow is a rest, a Sabbath set apart to Yahweh. That which you bake, bake, and that which you cook, cook, and lay up for yourselves all that is left over to keep it until morning. And they laid it up until morning as Moshe commanded, and it did not stink, and no worm was in it.
Thank you. All right, thank you, May. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to need one more after Rebitz and Joanne. Oh, Mandy, you want to go last? Okay, you can go last. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rebitz and Joanne that's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us in chapter 16 here, verse 25 to the end of the chapter.
And Moshe said, Eat it today, for today is the Sabbath to Yahweh. Today you do not find it in the field. Gather it 6 days, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, there is none. And it came to be that some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather, but they found none. And Yahweh said to Moshe, How long shall you refuse to guard my commands and my Torah? See, because Yahweh has given you the Sabbath, therefore he is giving you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Let each one stay in his place. Do not let anyone go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day, and the house of Israel called its name manna, and it was like white coriander seed, and the taste of it was like thin cakes made with honey. And Moshe said, This is the word which Yahweh has commanded. Fill an omer with it to keep for your generations, so that they see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness, and I brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe said to Aharon, Take a pot and put an omer of manna in it, and set it down before Yahweh to keep for your generations. And Yahweh commanded Moshe. So did Aharon set it down before the witness to keep. And the children of Israel ate manna 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. And an omer is 1/10 of an ephah.
Amen, amen. Okay, thank you, Rebitz and Joanne. Okay, Manny's coming up. Kurt's got it under control. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Manny who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're our final reader. You're going to read now chapter 17, verses 1 through 16, which is the whole chapter.
Awesome. Thank you. And all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin, according to the mouth of Yahweh, and camped in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people strove with Moshe and said, Give us water to drink. And Moshe said to them, Why do you strive with me? Why do you try Yahweh? And the people thirsted for more water, and the people grumbled against Moshe and said, Why did you bring us out of the Mitzrayim to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? And Moshe cried out to Yahweh, saying, What am I to do with these people? Yet a little, and they shall stone me. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Pass over before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel. And take in your hand your rod with which you struck the river, and go. See, I am standing before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people shall drink. And Moshe did so before the eyes of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the strife of the children of Israel, and because they tried Yahweh, saying, Is Yahweh in our midst or not? And Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moshe said to Yehoshua, Choose for us men, and go out fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I am stationing myself on the top of the hill with the rod of Elohim in my hand. And Yehoshua did as Moshe said to him, and fight with Amalek. And Moshe, Aharon, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to be when Moshe held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moshe's hands were heavy, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Yehoshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Write this for a remembrance in the book and recite it in the hearing of Yehoshua, that I shall completely blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heavens." And Moshe built a slaughter place and called its name Yahweh Nisi. For he said, "Because a hand is on the throne of Yahweh is to fight against Amalek from generation to generation."
Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you, Manny. All right. Amen. Thank you to all you readers. Excellent job. Really appreciate that. Okay, the traditional blessing after the Torah readings. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. All right. Excellent, excellent. Excited about the discussion we're going to have here. Let me just remind everybody quickly of some of the announcements that are coming up. How many people we got on there right now? Wow, 249. Excellent. I think last week, for the first time, we got over 300. We actually crossed over. Again, this is not about us. I always like to say this just to remind everyone. It just lets us know that we're doing an effective job of reaching people, right? Okay. So quickly through the announcements. So a reminder, if anybody wasn't on earlier, that we're canceling this Sunday's Money Mastery class. We will be continuing and picking it up the following Sunday, giving you a little bit extra time to work on your gathering of information for your budgets and stuff, and we'll review that next class. I am going to instead be traveling to visit Rebbitzin down in Florida. Okay. We do this Torah study for anybody that's new online every Tuesday, 8 o'clock. You're welcome to join us. We also live stream our services every Saturday at 1 o'clock. These are all Eastern time. On next Friday, for those of you that are locally here, we're going to be doing our Erev Shabbat here for dinner. Plan to come, be ready to go by 6 o'clock. Okay? Remember that sundown is not, it's a little after 6, maybe 6:15 at this point or whatever, so we want to make sure everything's prepared and ready to go by 6 o'clock. If you need to prepare something a little bit, make sure you get it in here by maybe 5:30, and we'll have that done. Okay, Saturday, let's see, okay, that's okay, sure. Leadership, next leadership meeting's on the 16th. Rosh Chodesh for Adar is on Tuesday, the Torah study night on the 25th of February. We'll do the Rosh Chodesh service and our Torah study that night. We'll stream both. Also on March 10th is Purim, and our Torah study. We'll have dinner at 6. We'll read the book of Esther, and we'll do our Torah study at 8. So we'll be streaming starting at 8 with the Torah study. And then, of course, Passover for this year will be April 8th through 16th, and the paperwork for that is on our website, MTOI.org. Okay, that was a quick blasting through the announcements. All right, so we got that done. All right, if you're planning to come to the Erev Shabbat, and I forgot to mention it again, please let May know if you have not done so already. I know a lot of you already signed up, but if you did not, I think we already have about 60 people coming. It's pretty big. So that's going to be exciting. A lot of people coming. Okay. It's funny how this Torah portion has a lot to do with food. So most of you just need to remember to gather your double omer worth of the manna and bring that with you to Erev Shabbat. Okay. So let's go ahead now into this Torah portion. So this is going to be a discussion. So you should have, at this point, hopefully some comments, questions, something you want to discuss. If you do not, I'm sure I can think of something. Okay? Because I've got a whole page full of notes here that we can go over. If you're on live stream, please be respectful. Manny and Kurt are manning that desk or keeping an eye on things they will write down, and Manny will read your questions or comments. If you are here, raise your hand, and Steve Waffle will come around with the microphone. We are looking primarily for things that you can take and glean. Well, maybe you'll glisten too, who knows? I don't really wake up for about another hour. Okay, so you'll glean that you can use in your walk. Okay, we're trying to say, okay, what can I see in what was going on here, how the Israelites were behaving, leadership, everything else? Is there anything I can glean out of this to apply in my daily walk? All right, who would like to start us off? Steve, shockingly, Mr. Steve has a comment or question. Okay, go for it.
I have a comment on the first verse of the reading, and this is what I got. Sometimes Abba displays things because our heart is not ready for the challenge that comes before the reward.
Okay. I mean, that's a good one right there. All right. Look, there's a lot going on in this Torah portion. I mean, we have a tremendous amount of, Rabbi Tom, do you have a comment? Are you coming around, or are you just trying to get a different position? Okay, Steve's coming around with the mic. Excuse me.
May I go up to chapter 14?
You can go wherever you want.
Okay. I know it's kind of funny. It's not really funny, maybe pitiful. In verse 8 of chapter 14, it says the children of Israel went out defiantly. Mm-hmm. And yet in verse 10, it says they were greatly afraid. They did the right thing. They crawled out to Yahweh. And then in verse 11, they turn around to Moshe and say, did you take us away to die in the wilderness? Because there are no burial sites. First they were defiant, then they were afraid, and then they were rebellious. They were frightened out of their wits. And this seems to be a theme, of course, throughout almost the entire Torah.
Amen.
Up and down, vacillating.
Well, apparently Israel was, as a nation, was bipolar.
Yeah.
And
like most of us. I was going to say, I think we're all guilty of that in one way or another.
Okay, so here's the deal, all right? It's really indicative of the maturity level, okay? See, when you're young and immature, you may start off with a lot of bluster, which is what they did when they came out of Egypt, and then some of the realities kicked in. Okay? And that's really what we're talking about here. As I said, that the children of Israel went out defiantly. Like they were all like, we're leaving, because after all, Yahweh just destroyed Egypt pretty much. And they're all full of themselves as if they had anything to do with it. And then some reality kicked in when they realized they're being chased, okay, by Egypt and chariots and between a rock, literally a rock and a hard place, and the sea and all that stuff. It kind of reminds me of many years ago when I had my own martial arts studio, and we had a bunch of children, 9, 10-year-olds in one of the children's classes, and I would let them spar with me at the end of class most weeks, and they were hysterical because there was like 7 or 8 or 12 of them, whatever it was, and they would be all like, come on, we're going to get them, and I'm trying so hard not to laugh, and then all I would do is like go, take one little step towards them, they'd scatter like crazy. But that's what it's like. They're thinking, we're going to go get them. There's like a lot of us and one of him, and, because it's the immaturity. They're little children at the time. Well, Israel, emotionally, were little children coming out of Egypt. They don't know anything about freedom. They've been slaves for a long time. And so here they are being all defiant as if they had anything to do with anything, only to find out, oh, wait a minute, the chariots are coming. Okay? And some of you have had those moments where you got a little, self-assured, headstrong, cocky, whatever it was, in some of your friends' faces about Torah observance, whatever. And then all of a sudden some trials kicked in and some other stuff, and you were like, oh, oops, wow. Okay? And then what happens? You see this in the Torah portion, the blame game. Oh, there wasn't enough graves in Egypt for us. You brought us out here to die, I see. We end up through the negative emotional filters. We talked about those a lot lately. They started to panic, fear. And we're talking, you don't even understand this level of panic. I mean, they were slaves. Their slave masters in chariots with armor and weapons and stuff and training were now 600 plus of them were now bearing down on them. There was rocks on one side, a wall of rock on one side, and the sea in front of them, and that's it. There was no place to go as far as they could tell. Of course, we read this because we know the story. But if you didn't know the story, you could imagine, it'd be great if you could imagine going back to when you first read the story and didn't know. Because you probably knew before you ever read the story. You probably saw the movie before you read the story. Okay? So you knew, so it's not surprising. But if you're reading the story, you're like, I wonder what's going to happen. The chariots are coming. Of course, it's only in the movie, it's an hour and a half, 3 hours. I mean, the first 10 Commandments, the one with Cecil B. DeMille's movie with Charlton Heston, that movie goes on for like forever. This is in like 5 verses, you know. They go from, we leave Egypt to, oh my goodness, they're about to kill us, you know. There's not a lot of buildup here. But you see them panicking. And when they panic right away, notice what they do. They attack the leadership. And it's interesting because they're saying to Moses, why did you? Did you take us away? Like Moses did anything. And I love Yahweh's response. Verse 15, he says to Moses, why do you cry to me? Speak to the children of Israel and let them go forward. Like apparently Moses at some point went to Yahweh, and Yahweh's like, well, just do what I told you to do. It's like, you know, we're going to find out later, like, you've been around this mountain long enough. Now, we're not there yet. They're not to the mountain. But that's one of those things. At some point, it says, go forward. Keep that in your life, in your mind, that your life is about going forward. Okay? Going forward. And doing it without fear. Stand still. Listen to the fear of Yahweh teaching over and over again. Be still, stand still, be quiet, and allow the deliverance of Yahweh to come forth. But notice that it's involving you taking some action. First, you need to quiet your fear. Quiet all that internal turmoil, the panic, the fear. That takes a lot of effort. So don't think it's like, oh, Yahweh's just going to do it. Well, you got to do your part. You got to be still. It's hard to be still when you're freaking out. Let's be honest. Okay, you're running around shooting all over the place, trying to do all kinds of things, trying to figure it out, calling everybody you know. You're flipping out. And he says, no. Shh. Take a breath. Now, when he says his deliverance, the people still had to go and walk across the dry land as the sea was parted. Okay, he didn't just whisk them up and land them on the other side. So you have your part in all of this. He's doing the part always in your life that you can't do. Not you won't do, but you can't. So just be careful if you're stopping and saying, well, you know, I expect Yahweh to do this, that, and the other thing, and realize, wait a minute, but those are things I can do. He's not going to do the stuff you can do for you. He'll help you, encourage you, be there, you know, to hold your hand if you struggle, but you have to do it. He's only going to do the part you can't do. So what did he do? He put a pillar of fire in front of them, the enemies, right? He put a pillar to stop the enemy from charging, and he split the sea. Israel couldn't do either of those things. But they still had to walk across the sea. Could you imagine walking through with water piled up on either side of you, ready to crash down on you? The army's still behind you, and you don't have any idea what this pillar thing is that's holding them back. No idea how long that'll last. Okay? And so in the meantime, you're trying to go across this dry land through the sea. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you need to do. So good point there, Rabbi Tom. Appreciate that. Because they go through consistently from Adam forward in a wide spectrum of emotional, you know, ups and downs. Sound like you? Anybody own that shirt? Everybody we're reading about in this book are human, except for the Father and the Son. And even the Son puts on a human suit for a little while. And all of the human beings in this book have the same problem that you do. They have to go through the emotional turmoil of having the battle in their mind, the battlefield in their mind of fear and doubt and trust and belief. And so you see this play out with Israel over and over and over. And oh yes, you can get pretty headstrong and very sure of yourself and very defiant and very, you know, in people's faces until all of a sudden your boss says boo. or your wife or your husband says whatever, or family members, you're big, full of all kinds of stuff, till next thing you know, the wrong person or the right person gets in your face. Then we find out really how strong you are. So be careful that, we got verses for everything. Be careful you think you stand, lest you fall. All right, very important. So take a note to this whole thing as Israel's coming out. As Abba, as the Father's delivering you out of your Egypt, be humble. Recognize how this is playing out. Okay, this is really, really important. And also be careful, like in chapter 14, that you're not blaming the leader for what Yahweh's doing. See, we want to blame the leader and picture the leader. You forget where Yahweh's hand is in things sometimes. Don't be so quick to attack a leader until you first discern whether or not that leader is part of Yahweh's plan in your life. Oh, but I don't like. So what? Okay? He allows or causes. You were supposed to learn to deal with it on some level. That doesn't mean you have to stay forever under a leader that's no good. Look, Pharaoh was awful. They had to be slaves for a long time, and they had to go and stay there during the plagues. He didn't take them out and then do the plagues to Egypt. They still stayed and dealt with that bad leadership while they were learning a good leadership. And there's a lot of things happening all at the same time. But you're going to see these contrasts. Remember, all along the way, you're going to see two things. The people, let me stop and state it again. All along the way, you're going to see everybody involved challenged where they are in the vertical. So you can see the people challenged in following the man who's following Yahweh. You're going to see the man who's following Yahweh challenged in dealing with the people in his following of Yahweh. You're going to see this consistently. Prophets, kings, Moses here. You're going to see all these people dealing with their struggle in their place in the vertical alignment. Moses will struggle. You know, there's a place here where he strikes the rock, and Yahweh tells him to strike the rock. And you know what? Later on, he tells him not to strike, but to speak. Why would he let him strike it the first time? I never even thought to ask that question until today. Why do you think that is? Because I think in Moses' emotional development, he needed to let off that steam. Think about what was going on before he struck the rock. He said, these people are going to strike me. They're going to kill me. I mean, he was really having a hard time with the people. And now we say, that's okay. Go up there and take it out on the rock. Give it a good swing. Wham. Now, later on, he expected Moses has grown enough. He says, no. This time, people are still getting on your nerves. I get it. And they were. He says, but this time, I want to see you maintain your temper. I want you to speak to that rock. Okay, so I'm thinking that he was understanding Moses' growth and saying, Moses, go ahead and here's your little outlet. Take your stick, bang the rock. It says he said to smite it, to hit that rock. Notice that that's at the beginning of the journey. Moses hadn't spent a whole lot of time working on his temper at this point. Okay? And by the way, if you've got a problem, notice that Moses has a temper problem, so what does Yahweh give him? Oh, about 2 million people to test his temper problem. Well, I don't understand why all these people are in my life pushing my buttons all the time, because you're supposed to learn how to get rid of the buttons. I've heard people say those kinds of things to me. I don't understand why all these people in my life keep doing this and doing that, and it just, because of that, whatever that is that you're dealing with, right? But that's got to go. Whatever that is that's causing you such angst, negative emotion, whatever it is, he's allowed all that stuff in your life so you can deal with that. Moses had not done a good job up to the point when he strikes the rock, not this time, but the next time, when he strikes the rock and he wasn't supposed to. Okay? And that's the failure. It's not that he didn't understand Yahweh, but he knew how good it felt, I'm sure, and the place he was to give that thing a good swing. And he wanted to do that again. Okay? All right, who's next? Where's the mic? Manny's got it? Okay, let Manny do a couple, then we'll come back out to you guys.
Sorry, I got caught up reading over here. Trying to catch up with everybody. Okay, first one is Libby, Exodus 16, 2 and 3.
Bro, we jumped all the way to 16. Okay, but I did not mention that this week that we do it chronologically, so go ahead. Exodus 16.
For me, chronologically, they're starting at 16 forward.
That's fine. 16
Okay.
is fine.
16, 2 and 3, is this discord what opened the door for attack from Amalek?
Probably. Though there was a lot of grumbling going on. But you know what you see in these chapters where it talks about the grumbling, you got to love what happens further on when it says in, let's see, verse 7. He says, in the morning you shall see the esteem of Yahweh, for he hears your grumblings against Yahweh, and what are we that you grumble against us? So Moses has to straighten them out and say, you're grumbling against me. Well, why you grumble against me? I'm not the one doing anything. I just work for the one doing all the work. Oh, can I relate to that? I get to hear lots of people grumbling against me. I'm like, I'm just the messenger. Why are you mad at me? Okay? Oh, but I didn't like the way you said that to me. Well, maybe that's what you needed, though. Or maybe that was part of my growth that I needed to learn. Whatever it was what you were supposed to experience one way or the other. It was either caused or allowed and that kind of thing. But we've got to be careful because it says here, it says, in verse 8, it says, in that Yahweh gives you meat in the morning and bread in, meat in the evening and bread in the morning to satisfaction, for Yahweh hears your grumblings which you make against him. Your grumblings are against, he says, your grumblings are not against us, they're against him. Amen and amen for every leader out there. The people that are grumbling have to recognize who they're grumbling against. Okay? Don't grumble against the leadership. If you're under wrong leadership, then that's your fault. Leave. If you're under right leadership and still struggling, then that's also your fault and not his, because Yahweh's trying to get your attention. Stop blaming the leader. You got a bad leader, don't blame him, leave. I get people calling me up all the time trying to ask me how I can help them or give them counsel on how to change their leader in their congregation. I'm not talking about MTOI congregation. I'm talking about somebody in a congregation somewhere that's not connected with us, because if they're connected with us, there's something we can possibly do to talk to the leadership because we're accountable to each other. But they'll say, well, I go to this congregation in this place wherever they're living, blah, 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 and the leader's doing this, and how can I make them stop, or how can I make them... Why are you even doing that? Not your job. They don't work for you. This isn't like you're so used to being in a country where the people have a say. I hate to wake you up to this harsh reality. You don't get a say. Read your book. A king is coming. You don't get a say. When they come in at Sinai, Yahweh didn't say, well, I'm going to speak, and then we're going to discuss it, and if you agree and it's okay, after negotiations, we'll agree to what you're going to do. Or we'll vote. No. Okay? There's none of that. Now, there is counsel. Look, the Jerusalem Council, Acts 15, you see people coming because of the accusations that Paul was teaching in circumcision, and you see them come, and you see a discussion, but there's no voting. James says, this is what we're going to do. And the discussion ends. Okay? Had this happen in a congregation, I was working, actually, Beshalach here, but it was many years ago in another location in Chattanooga. Lady in the congregation didn't like a decision that was made. Actually, it wasn't even one made by me, but I endorsed it by one of the other leaders in the congregation. And, she goes, well, I don't think everybody would agree with that decision. And I said, well, that doesn't really have anything to do with anything. I said, you know me a long time. We don't vote here. Okay? Your opinion is duly noted. Nonetheless, this is what we're doing. Or this is what we're not doing. She wanted us to do something we weren't going to do. I said, we do not vote here. The burden of responsibility for the vision is on the leader. The leader now has to spend his time in a fiduciary position to protect that vision. That cannot happen if we're voting. That cannot happen. So people say, do you have a council of elders or a board of elders or this other thing? Look, we have a board for financial purposes, knowing that the government requires us, if we're going to have an organization like this, that there is a board. Okay, but all decisions, okay, that have to do with this are made by me, as it should be, whoever the leader is. Not that all things should be made, but I'm saying this group has me at its head. Other congregations have, and I counsel all the leaders. I said, you need to know that if you're running a congregation right now that's got a board vote and all that needs to stop. That cannot work. That doesn't mean you don't have accountability. We have a leadership council that meets every month. Their opinions are valued. The burden of responsibility to make decisions, though, still falls ultimately on me as the head of the group. And I always call it that, the burden to make those decisions, okay? It's not like I'm in charge, I get to make the decisions. It's a different attitude, completely wrong. I have the burden of the responsibility of those decisions. So right or wrong, it doesn't fall on anybody else. But I do it with counsel. I also have the burden of making the effort to bring consensus. In other words, it's my job to help the others understand why the decision was made now in most cases, whatever we're talking about, we all generally agree anyway. So there isn't a lot of things where I have to step in and make a call. Yahweh has brought together some very like-minded people. We discuss things, and it turns out, generally on most things, we see things the same. And then when we don't, it generally doesn't end up being a hard time for me to explain my reasons for going whichever way we choose to go and bringing consensus. All right? So it's never like, well, this is what we're doing, too bad on you. But recognize that this book is trying to show you here, the grumbling people are the problem. Not the leadership, not Yahweh, but the people. Now, why were they grumbling? Because in the short term, they seemed to be suffering and had no idea the bigger picture to understand what was really happening. They were totally zoomed in myopically into this tiny little window of space and could not see the bigger picture. Guess what? Sometimes when I'm working with you or a leadership person is working with you, you may not understand the full path they're trying to get you down, to go down through a path. But you don't like the one little thing happening right at this second. It's like, please, give it some time. Usually when people work with me the first time, I say, please, give me 6 months or a year, no questions. Just trust. If you don't like it, that's fine. You could always move on. But you're never going to really know if it's going to work until you do it for a period of time. And then you'll see the results over time. Okay? Because otherwise, how would you know? Because if you're looking at just the immediate first thing, or maybe it's like Israel. It looks good, and then it goes bad, and it looks good, and it goes bad. I mean, they were excited when Moses said, hey, Yahweh said we're leaving, and then Pharaoh gave them to make bricks without straw. Then they weren't so excited. Then they were protected from plagues, and they were excited. But I mean, it just kept going because they just couldn't see the big picture. The leadership was the job. Their job was to trust the leadership. They had to know, not that they're trusting the leader, they had to know that Yahweh had put that person there, that Yahweh was leading the leader. In other words, the vertical alignment was there. There was a straight vertical there. That person was the next vertical up from you or from them, right? Follow what's happening here. Because Rabbi Tom makes a good point. He says, look at the emotional roller coaster these guys are on. Why are they on that roller coaster? Because they could not see far enough ahead. Look what happens when they spy the land. We're not there yet, obviously, and we don't get there till the book of Numbers. But when we get there, when they spy the land, you know the story. Only 2 could see far enough ahead what Yahweh had in mind. The others were looking at these immediate-looking scary obstacles in between where they were and where they were going. Now, if you don't trust, this is a problem in your life. He called you when he did, knowing you could get where he wants you to go, which is the kingdom, from where he started you. But you are looking at all these little short-term obstacles saying, I'll never get there. But he sees all the way to the end and knows you can get there. But you could choose to give in and cave to the obstacles. You can quit. You can panic like they were doing here in the Sea of Reeds. Or you could trust him and say, I have no idea how this is going to work. I just know it will. That's what Joshua and Caleb did. They said, well, I don't know. It is a land full of milk and honey and all these wonderful things. Yeah, there's big guys there and scary big walls in the cities and all this other stuff. But so what? Remember, he just destroyed Egypt. Yahweh just destroyed Egypt, and we're going to worry about big cities with some walls and some big people. You were slaves. Now, by the time they get to those cities, now they've learned how to fight. They've developed an ability to win some battles. They're not just slaves anymore. They've been for 40 years. At this point, when they first buy the land, it's only a little while. But they're coming out. They're getting some experience, and they've had some battles where Yahweh intervened. Like right here, a battle where Yahweh intervened. Moses' hands are up. By the way, do you notice that people needed to hold up his hands? Where are the people to hold up leadership's hands? Oh, a lot of people are trying to kick him in the you-know-what, knock him down, tear him down, but are you there to hold up his hands? Because when that leader's hands are being held up, it goes well. When they weren't, it went badly. And so they went and not only that, they got the leader a place to sit, tried to help him be as comfortable, so he wasn't just standing the whole time. We gave him they said, look, we're going to make it comfortable for you, we're going to hold up your hands. All right? So let's just keep all that in mind. I mean, Rabbi Tom brought up a really good point, because that's one of the big themes that you see playing throughout all the scriptures is, look, even Yeshua had this problem with the disciples on the boat, right? They were pretty excited to be with Yeshua, but then the storm came. Now they're panicking. But he's in your midst. Why are you panicking? He's right there. All right, next question. Excuse me.
Okay, we had a couple of latecomers. One went back to 14 and 115.
All right.
So William, in Shemot 14:9, is the word overtook probably a poor choice of words that may have better explained the situation?
Look, it's trying to tell you that they caught up with them, okay? Like they were within striking distance. And that's really what it's trying to tell you here, that they weren't just, way, way back. The Israelites had left way in advance, and now, they had this huge distance between the two. They couldn't even, they said they overtook them, meaning they caught up. Maybe is a better way of saying it. They had caught up to them now within striking distance. All that they needed to do was strike, and then the pillar blocks them. Okay? Next question. So maybe overtook isn't the best word, but that's what they're trying to convey. Go ahead.
Philip Mason has a question about 15:6. Could this be a reference to Yeshua?
Well, it'd be a metaphor. I mean, look, he's specifically talking here about how, as they're singing the song, that this has made his reputation mighty. And right hand is symbolic of strength and of authority. And so it's saying your right hand, your authority, your strength is now famous. You've done all these things. Okay? So could it also be referring to Yeshua? Of course, because anything to do with the right hand, anything to do with the strength of Yah that way, it could certainly be. And actually, in literal sense, the Yahweh being talked about here is Yeshua. So, because the Yahweh interacting with them all the way through this whole journey is the Son, not the Father. If you don't understand what I'm talking about online, then you have to listen to a teaching called Do You Know the Father and the Son? Okay? But, so literally from that point of view, we're dealing with it anyway. Okay? Next question.
Next question, Chantel Jackson. She has a question about 14:19. Was this messenger with them the entire time and they didn't know?
Well, look, it's there's times in the story where that which Yah is doing is visible to them. Okay, in this case, this visible thing was now moving to the back of the camp, and then would then block and protect them. Okay, and that's where we now have the column of cloud that went before them and now stood behind them. Okay, and came between the camps. So we're talking about what they would see. So this is talking about the one they would see. All right?
Shaquez Exodus 16:22. Is this another example of the vertical alignment? Leaders report to their leader Moshe, who reports to his leader Yahweh.
Yep. And you see this when he actually puts heads over this and heads over that and all those kind of things. You know, they're all going to, you know, when you look at the heads of the tens and then you have the heads of hundreds, I mean, you can already assume that the heads of tens are reporting to the heads of hundreds. And those are reporting to the heads of thousands, those ways. It's set up just like a military, like an army would with, you know, squads and then, you know, whatever, battalions and I don't know, whatever size each thing is. But you have different, you know, size groups and they each report to the next up the line. So you have leadership at the smaller level and then those smaller level leaders report up to the next higher levels. Okay?
Okay, Denise would like to know in chapter 16, verse 28. Why
Wait, hold on. Wait, I actually have another thought. It is also something to probably keep in mind is that as you go up the chain, it's most likely that that leadership is only dealing with directly the lower leadership. So if the head over 1,000 is dealing with the, you know, 10 heads over 100, so you get your 1,000. He's not dealing with the whole 1,000. So each level up is only now dealing with the leaders of, just like you would deal with that in the military to a certain degree. Okay? So it's not like each person up is now being stuck with a much larger burden. They actually have a larger burden, but they're dealing with less people who are handling the larger groups as they're broken up into smaller groups. So just keep that in mind. It works just like you would picture in any other good, well-built vertical structure. Okay? So head of 100s is probably dealing with a bunch of heads over 10s or the heads over 50s, whatever it is that's reporting then to him. So they're not, but because you're dealing with less people, they're able to deal with the dynamics of those bigger groups through one voice of the head of each group. The more day-to-day stuff that the smaller group is dealing with is dealt by the smaller group's leadership. Only if something is necessary to bring up higher does it go up to the next level, and et cetera, all the way up the chain, because the burden of responsibility is bigger for more people. Okay? So just kind of keep that in mind also, because that's an important piece of this structure. I don't want you thinking that some people only had to handle 10 people and other people had to handle 1,000. I don't think that's the way it worked out. I think it was that the people that are higher up are responsible for the larger group, but only dealing with the heads below them. That's part of the vertical. All right, go on.
Okay, Denise had a question regarding chapter 16, verse 28. She wants to know why was God speaking to Moses directly about what some of the people were doing? It seems like God was accusing Moses of not obeying.
No, I mean, look, there's times where it's more clear where Yahweh says to Moses, tell the people this, and parts where Moses says to Yahweh from the people, and he's stuck in the middle. Okay? Excuse me. All right? I mean, Moses wasn't refusing to do anything. So that's not the problem here. And again, in the translations, in the conversation, as it gets written down, sometimes it doesn't have the clarity when you are trying to figure out how this works grammatically, et cetera, to give you the voice and the sounding of who's speaking to who and when, how it works out. Also, in the Hebrew, there's no punctuation per se to understand where would a comma have been or a period have been and how this all plays out more clearly. Occasionally, there's spacings that were there and some markings that could give you some breaks, but generally speaking, there wasn't a whole lot of these things. So, you know, we have here, the clarity is that there was a problem with keeping Sabbath, understanding the gathering of the manna, and him saying, look, how long are the people going to not understand to follow what I say? Now, bear in mind, he hasn't gotten to Sinai yet. We're almost there. Okay? Because remember, he taught them basically the first 4 commands before they get to Sinai. Okay? Because this is commandment 4 right here. And they're going to be at Sinai in 5 minutes. Next teaching, we're going to be in Exodus 18, 19. We're going to be right there. So the point here has to do with not Torah like you think of, but Torah from the idea of if I said it, you need to trust it and do it. So how long will you go on refusing to trust what comes out of my mouth? And then the kind of hinted at there, we'll kind of go into the remez or the hint, is that we're dealing with the leadership as well, because I'm speaking through a human being. So you're not, obviously the people aren't trusting Moses still. So you're not trusting that Moses speaks for me, is what he's saying. Well, how long will you not trust that Moses speaks for me and do what I tell you to do? Because after all, I'm getting you to the place where we're about to covenant. And the covenant will be, will you agree to do what I say to do? But I'm going to be saying it. Now, in this point, he already knows he's going to say it to them directly, and they're going to refuse. They're going to say, we don't want you to talk to us directly. He already knows all that. So this is already prepping on all of that. He knows I'm going to speak to them directly, and they're going to panic, and they're not going to want to listen directly. So if you don't like this whole vertical way it works with human beings, well, human beings have had a problem with it all the way through. They don't want to actually listen directly. Oh, no, the Ruach just teaches me. Well, you got a bunch of voices in your head. I don't mean that as a joke either. Your own voice is the loudest one. I like, I don't want, I do, I this. All about me, 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 me. Your preferences. That voice is the loudest one in your head, and it wants you to think it's Yahweh's voice. So it spins and twists everything to your advantage of what you do or don't want, your preferences, what you do or don't want to do. All right? All right, next question.
Olivia and Janet Hoffman, Rabbi, chapter 16, verse 35. The children of Israel ate manna for 40 years and then were tested. Is this related to Yeshua communing with the Father 40 days while fasting, then tested? Is this a baptism of fire?
Okay, my version doesn't say that. What did it say, 1635?
That's what she wrote down, yes. I'm hoping that's correct.
Yeah, no, I mean, it says that they ate manna for 40 years until they came to the inhabited the land, until they came to the border of Canaan. So, but the word tested isn't in there, at least in my translation, so I don't understand the question from the verse.
Maybe she means they were tested afterwards.
Well, I mean, look, they came into the land, they had the food in the land, and that was the whole point, is that the land was abundant with food. I'm giving you a land flowing with milk and honey. It's got abundance of food and everything is there. So they only ate the manna in the wilderness. So I don't know that there's a test. The testing was during their time in the wilderness. There's tons of that. But this is saying, hey, listen, they ate this manna that he just told us about. They ate that for the whole 40 years is what he's telling you. Okay? Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Robert Wyatt, chapter 17, verse 5 through 6. Who were the elders selected before approaching the rock in Horeb, and why were they selected?
Well, it doesn't tell us. Whenever it says elders, Moses is taking people of reputation from among the other people with respect, and he was taking them to support and be visible as part of the leadership. Okay? So he says, look, and I always said the Moses Passover before the people, take with you some of the elders and take with your hand. So the people needed to see that the leadership was standing together. This is before there was a formal leadership per se, but I mean, he's taking some of the elders here and saying, okay, you are representatives, you are, and your reputation, and you're highly respected in your reputation among the people. And you're going to stand with Moses when he goes and strikes the rock. Okay?
All right,
I'm sorry, not when he strikes. This is where he's going to. Well, yeah, he strikes the rock, and then after that, you also have the battle. Go ahead.
Okay, the next one, we have a few regarding 17:14. What does Yahweh mean? He will blot out the remembrance of Amalek. And can you please explain blotting out the remembrance of Amalek?
Okay, I do actually have that verse in my notes. I don't know why I also wrote it down. If you're watching a live stream, when someone asks a question, you see me look down at my notes, because I've actually written down most of the verses that you guys might ask about over the years. So 17:14, and Yahweh said to Moshe, write this for remembrance in the book and recite it in the hearing of Yehoshua, that I shall completely blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heavens. Okay? Look, so now bear in mind, at this point, are the Amalekites wiped out? No. Okay, they're defeated. And so he wanted to make sure that this was going to be written down for remembrance so Joshua would know that this is the plan. Okay, that the Amalekites would be blotted out. Okay, now when it says blot out the remembrance of Amalek, I mean, it has to do with their reputation, their standing. Not that we would, I mean, if it's written down, we're going to still know who they were. We have a history of it, etc., of all of the things that happened, but it has to do with the way they would be looked at in history. Okay? So the idiomatic phrase had to do with their remembrance, their standing, okay, is going to be dealt with. Blotting them out as a nation of standing. Okay? Not that you wouldn't remember that they actually existed. All right? But it's an idiomatic phrase. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Tommy Stevenson actually had one. Luke wanted to know if 1 Samuel 15 is a fulfillment of Exodus 17:14.
Well, hold on. 1 Samuel what?
15.
Well, it was an attempt to. Okay, but of course we know that we have a problem with, Saul not getting the job done. Okay? So this was part of the attempt, yes. Luke is correct. However, this is where it doesn't get done. Okay? And so this is part of the problem. Because this is where you've got Agag, okay, being dealt with. And this is how eventually we lead to Haman. All right? Okay, what's next?
Okay, Stephanie wanted to know, who would Amalek be in today's time from Shemot 17:8?
And Amalek came and fought with Israel and Rephidim. Let's not try to figure out who's who today. I mean, it's we'd be only guessing, and then somehow everybody who we might point the finger at is going to be treated awful because they're Amalek. Who knows? Don't worry about that stuff. Worry about where you are in the picture of it. Don't worry about everybody else that way. It's like all the people spend hours and hours and hours trying to figure out, well, where's, all the 12 tribes and where did they end up and all this other stuff and how they, if that's a hobby you want to do, that's fine, but don't get too caught up in spending a lot of time on these things. It doesn't help you in your journey. Okay? All right.
Libby would like to know in Exodus 16:2 and 3, is this discord what opened the... Oh, I think I asked that question already. Mm-hmm. Is this the discord that opened the door for attack on Amalek, from Amalek? Sorry about that. Let me see. Kevin, in Shemot, this is going back a little bit. In Shemot 15:26, is this that one of the characteristics of Elohim healer? Also in Shemot 17:15?
Yes.
That was quick. Okay. And another one in 15:20.
And it comes right out in 26. It says, "For I am Yahweh who heals you." This is when he helps you to understand his attributes. All right, continue.
Sid also had a question on 15:20. Why was Miriam called a prophetess?
Okay, so it doesn't give us anywhere. Okay, I'm only saying whom because I want to just figure out how I want to put this first. Okay, we know the definition of prophet is those who speak the word of Yahweh with authority. Okay? What we don't have in your book is a whole lot of information about anybody that doesn't move the story forward. So we know some things that Miriam did because of that. It had to do with actively being a part of the story going forward. Her interactions with her brother, her interactions with Aaron against Moses, those kind of things. But as far as her interaction with people and anything else she did, it doesn't tell us. And so it doesn't appear that she gets called that. I don't even know if this is the only place, but it really doesn't come up very often if this is not the only place. But it doesn't tell us why she would get that designation. Okay? And I'd have to go into Hebrew and see what it says there, but I don't have a good answer for you because we do not know anything about what Miriam did. Some of the things she did were, not all that, wonderful in terms of her reputation, but she had her few moments. So it doesn't say. Okay?
Okay, and I just got a couple more, and these are just straight questions, not so much chapters and verses. Olivia and Janet Hoffman, Rabbi, the children of Israel were instructed to gather for the day a portion of manna and feed themselves daily. Can we infer that we need to feed from the word daily for actual survival? Halacha?
Well, certainly you could look at it from that sort of metaphor, perspective, as a metaphor that, eating of the word daily, because we're taught in Deuteronomy, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes forth from the mouth of Yahweh. And we have the model prayer, give us our daily bread. We have lots of references to that. It doesn't say that you will die. There's times when we're supposed to fast. Okay? So it's not like you're saying that but if you sustain yourself on bread as part of your, on food, physical food, which is bread, the manna was, is supposed to be representing, then also obviously to sustain your vertical, your spiritual life, your vertical life, you should be feeding on the word that explains all that. Absolutely. Okay?
Okay, 4 more, and they should be quick. Ben Israel, he wants to know, why were the Israelites armed?
I'm going to guess that you think that whoever's asking the question might think that, well, if they had Yahweh, why would they need to be armed? Because Yahweh still expected them to fight some of their own battles, knowing that he goes before them, but they still had to do the fighting. Okay? Which, by the way, just like it's okay for us to be armed, and many of us are. Okay? I'll never tell. But they were expected to do their fighting. Now, of course, in their battles, like you see the one that's in this Parsha this week, there were times when they were doing well and winning, and there's times when they were losing, based on where Moses' arms are up or down. Okay? And so...
I was going to say, it reminds me of when Yeshua tells them to carry a sword.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
We're also told that there's a time to do battle, in Solomon's writings, Ecclesiastes. In Ecclesiastes, it tells us, there's a time for war. Okay? So, and isn't there going to be a big battle at the end that we're all going to be hopefully a part of? Okay, now clearly he could handle it himself if that's the way he wanted to do it. But that's not the way it's going to play out. Okay? Go ahead.
King's daughter, defiant, afraid, and rebellious, repeat, sounds like not much has changed.
Yep.
Nancy wanted to share that she was gleaning, this portion reminds me not to forget all that Yahweh has done over my lifetime, so that when the next mountain appears, I remember to trust him completely. And the McTigrit family, did Yahweh cause the Egyptians to drown in recompense for all of the Hebrew babies drowned in the Nile at the command of Pharaoh?
That's certainly possible.
That was it.
Okay, and there were some questions out here. I don't know if the people want to go back and get their questions answered, but there were. I know there were some hands up out here. No, yes? Okay, Rick has a comment or question.
Yeah, I had a few, just real quickly.
Okay.
Going back to 14:15, where Yahweh says to Moshe, "Why do you cry to me?" Because, and he says, "Speak to the children of Israel, let them go forward." Now, then he gives them instructions about lifting up his rod, but he already lifted up his rod before and used it in various things. So was it perhaps expected that he should know, hey, I put you here, you got the rod, you know what to do with it. What are you talking to me for about this? What are you complaining about?
I don't know. Look, it may have also to be with the fact that, as he was starting to come into this role and dealing with these people. Now remember, he has not had to deal with this level of interaction with people and hearing the griping, complaining, the fear, the panic, and all the other stuff. So he may have gone to Yahweh and said, to a certain way, he was crying out like, hey, come on, what am I supposed to do with you? He said, why are you crying to me? Instead of just coming to me confident saying, okay, what do you want me to do next? It may have had to do with his attitude, not the fact that he was coming to Yahweh. Okay?
Okay, and then the other one, 14, 19 and 20, 20 particularly, but in 19 it was talking about the messenger of Elohim moved and went behind them. The messenger went behind them. The column of cloud went from before them. So I'm taking the cloud is the messenger, or the messenger is the cloud, and came between them, and it was the cloud and the darkness, and it gave light by night. I thought that was interesting in your relationship, in your teaching on darkness and light. You want to expound on that?
Well, look, whatever Yahweh uses, okay, would be considered a messenger. In other words, if he sends something to serve a purpose, to lead, guide, intervene, create a space, if it's sent of Yah, it would be called also a messenger. Okay? We don't have to worry about naming it. Is it, as the Jews might call it, Metatron or Memra? Is it Yeshua? Is it this or is it that? Don't get all hung up on trying to identify. In other words, it's that specifically that was sent and empowered of Yah. Okay?
All right, and last one, 16, 34. Oh, the witness. And I think you addressed this last year when we went through this. I'm sure you did, but I don't remember what it was. He set it down before the witness, and we don't have the tabernacle. We don't have the Ark of the Covenant and all that yet. So what can we understand about the witness? Who might the witness have been?
Look, again, you have these kind of things that pop up, and we're not sure in them, as the people who are writing them or rewriting them again, who are putting things in or confusing. So that could have been a writer error where a person was in translation saying, okay, just so we're clear, that's the stuff that was in there with the Ten Commandments, even though this is 3 chapters earlier. Okay? But it could be that Moses had been documenting, as he was writing out the 5 books and the previous stuff, that is a witness. The witness is basically the testimony or the story of the journey. So he may have already been documenting up to this point, and that could have been the witness. Well, if it's capitalized, it's just some translator decided to capitalize. There are no capitals in Hebrew. So Hebrew doesn't have capital letters. Okay? Okay, Nadia.
Hi, Rabbi. I have several questions about a topic that I've read this chapter before. I never noticed this. In regards of Joseph's bones.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a symbolism behind that? One, is that cultural? Is that something that is usually done? Why they're taking them? And we do this in Colombia. Like when they bury someone, after a while, after a certain amount of years, they take the bones out and they place them someplace else. Is that related to it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, you have, instruction that was given when Jacob said, make sure that you take my bones back to where my forefathers were, right? So he wanted to be buried in the same place. Joseph may have given instruction, but what you see is Joseph, which is representative of Israel, which is going down the line, that Israel is leaving Egypt. So Joseph, the bones and everything, so they're taking him with them. In other words, Yahweh had said, you will not be returning there. Do not return to Egypt. Don't leave anything back there you'd want to visit, come back to. All right? Also, from a cultural point of view, we know how there are, even today, very commonly, people will go visit burial sites of significant figures in their belief system. And so we did not want that to be in Egypt. He did not want it so that they would want to go back to Egypt where Joseph's bones would have been. Lots of possibilities. Obviously, when it's not mentioned, it's not important. Okay, but it's something that we get kind of itches our brain, so we want to ask about it. So it's good. I'm just saying is, there may have been instruction. Jacob gave very specific instruction about his needing to be buried where he needed to be. Joseph may have as well. Okay? All right? Yes?
In 1632, Yahweh tells Moshe to take an ephah and to keep it to show the generations. And I think it was a couple Torah portions ago, something similar to that. And then I think when the children actually cross over the Jordan River, he tells Joshua to take a stone, that each tribe is to take a stone and show it. And I know that, I've heard you say, and I agree with that, our children have to have their own witness. But it seems like there's a lot of emphasis on us making sure we have things around and maybe even visible things that our children can see and ask about, and then we can witness to them about the miracles that were done in our lives. And just seems like it's a reoccurring thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, having some, we have Bibles. They didn't have Bibles. We have ways to have people know what happened. So, when they journeyed and built that pillar, the 2 pillars that they built going over the Jordan, anytime anybody would pass by, they would know, oh, these are those things that the book talks about. They're there. It helps bring credence, to the claims of the account. Okay, so having physical things, same thing when they would say, oh, well, we ate for 40 years, we ate this manna. Yeah, whatever. Well, no, actually, here it is. There's a pot of it right here in the ark, Okay, so they had things that were physical there to show them. Okay? And some of the significant things like Aaron's rod, etc., would be, brought with them. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Kathy. And then we'll wrap it up here. We're about 5 minutes to 10.
Rabbi, I was just looking at 13:17.
Yep.
That when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Elohim did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, though that was nearer. And I think sometimes in my life, I'm going, can't we get there faster? Can't we do this? But he clearly did that to protect them, knowing their hearts that they would see the Philistines and might, whatever our struggles are, whatever our issues are, whatever fighting that I have to do, wrestling that I have to do to get over what he's got to get out of me, so that we're not tempted to want to return, or not that there is any other place to go. I mean, I definitely don't want to go back to my Mitzrayim. So, but that was one thing. And then I was wondering, at one point, a lady in another Torah thing was talking about Baal Zephon, that it was something that's 14:2, I guess, that was one of their gods, something about the sea. And she, this was a woman, but she was saying maybe this was, one more of their idols. There are things that they worshipped, that they were going to all end up at the bottom of the sea, that he was going to command their God to take them out.
Well, or it simply could have been a landmark.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying it more likely had just been a landmark that they would have, people would have read this and known exactly what they're talking about.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So it's a landmark.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as the way of the Philistines, look, also understand that rather than have them trust him in battle at this point, right, because they hadn't done any battling yet, he wanted to take them through a path where he was going to do the whole battle for them. to strengthen their resolve. Because the way the Philistines, they would have met, I don't know, the Philistines. But this way, they finished dealing with Pharaoh without any outside, deals, and they dealt with Pharaoh without them having to fight at all. So there were other things than the fact that it was the shorter, easier looking, whatever, more direct route. All right? So again, just like he had a plan to bring all those plagues to fully show his signs and wonders in Egypt, he had certain ones he wanted to do outside of Egypt. Okay? So good points, good questions. Awesome. Okay. I'm looking at my notes. Probably don't have a lot more to add. We have done fairly well here. What did I want to bring out? In 15:16, just a little comment that was mentioned there. It says, let's see, O Yahweh, until the people whom you have bought pass over. By the way, 1 Corinthians 6:20 says, you were bought with a price. So remember, we're talking about these metaphors of the Exodus and the redemption. Remember, we talked about the 4 cups, right? Coming out from under the burdens, deliverance, redemption, and acceptance. Okay? And so the bought with a price, he says, this is a little phrase that's in one verse as they're going through. He says, fear and dread fell on them by greatness of your arm. They are as silent as a stone until your people pass over, O Yahweh, until the people whom you have bought. Bought, redeemed. Redemption was usually a exchange of value, right? When you wanted to redeem back one of the tithe animals, you would pay a fifth, and you could redeem it. You had to buy it for a price if you wanted it that bad. The people were bought, so 1 Corinthians 6:20 has, do not forget that you were bought with a price. Okay? So that's really good. Also in 15:27, I just wanted to throw this out there just as a parting gift. They do mention 12 fountains of water and 70 palm trees.
Yeah.
Okay, so 12 fountains of water, like the 12 tribes, out of which were supposed to come living waters, like the 12 apostles. 70, like the 70 that you have of the 70 nations. You have the 70 of the ones that Yeshua had, the 70 that were sent out. Okay, and they're the palm trees, the pillars, the strength like that you would build upon. You think of the trees as being that. So it's just all kinds of wonderful little metaphors you could try to glean out of the fact that they came to Elim where there were 12 fountains of water, 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters. Okay, just thought it was interesting to see the numbers there. Okay, and I think that's all I'm going to cover for now. I think you guys did a really good job. Appreciate that. One other thing, in 15:11, that is your Mi Chamocha. Okay, so the Mi Chamocha is in this section here. All right, so when we have liturgy pieces that come up, sometimes people say, well, what's up with all that Jewish prayer stuff? Well, that's actually stuff out of Scripture. Okay, like the Mi Chamocha comes right out of 15:11. Who is like you, O Yahweh, among the mighty ones? Who is like you, great and set apart, awesome in praises, working wonders? Okay, there's your Mi Chamocha. Okay? And then, of course, in 15:26, Yahweh says, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh Elohim to do what is right in his eyes and listen to his commands, guard his laws, I shall bring on you none of the diseases I brought in the Mitzrayim, so I am Yahweh who heals you. So, but this is all an if, then. If you diligently obey. Oh, no, that was all done away with, Rabbi. You're silly. Don't you know, you foolish man? What is that? Oh, no. It's always been that he expects us to make the effort, to be diligent in our obedience. Some of us are falling short on that category. We're less than diligent. We may be obeying, but maybe not so diligently. Okay? So we might want to work on that. Amen. Okay, who's going to close this up? Where's the mic? Steve's got it? All right, bring it over to Richard. He hasn't said anything today. Give Richard the mic. All right, Richard's going to go ahead and close us in prayer.
Oh, awesome, Father. We do thank you for your word and the ability to come together and study. We ask that you help us to walk it out and not just talk it out. So, Father, again, we thank you. We give you praise and honor. And we pray this in the name of your Son, Yeshua, Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, excellent job, everyone. Awesome. Good news is we're going to be back in a couple of days for Erev Shabbat. So that's very exciting. Awesome. Praise team, of course, will be here tomorrow. So we're here all these days in a row. All right, so those of you that want to be on camera and wave to everybody out there, what number did we get to today? Oh, okay, you don't know what it got up to? Okay, no problem. Those of you who want to be on camera, come on up. We're going to wave to everybody out there. All right, here comes most everybody. Pretty much. All right, come on up. You've been called out. Well, we are the called out ones, so it's okay. All right. Okay, so we got everybody on camera, Michael? We good? No? Yes? Oh, everybody but Michael. Michael wants to get in here. Okay, good. All right. Don't stand right in front of Gabe. Let me make sure you can see him. All right. All right, so what we're going to do is on 3, we are going to say Lila Tov, because it's good night. Shavua Tov, have a good week, and tell them we love them. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, wait. How about Tom jumped ahead of us? Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Lila Tov! Shavua Tov! We love you! Have a good week. All right, get a little scratch. Good job. Rabbi Tom. Steve, where's the mic? All right, I gave it to back.